Part 46. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 456. After walking quickly through several streets, the young monk in yellow shirt stopped in a remote alley. I saw a light blue gleam of light on each of his hands, and he wiped off his face with a thin, cicada-like mask. This peculiar face is translucent white, soft, and very moist. It looks like a gel made of fish skin. On one side, there are many tadpole-like peculiar signs. As soon as the mask was removed, the young monk in yellow shirt shook his hand gently, and the light blue light flashed on his hand again. The strange mask immediately turned into a puff of dust and disappeared without a trace. Immediately afterwards, the young monk in yellow shirt took out an almost identical mask, reached out a bit, and the entire mask became completely transparent, fitting on his face. The true face of the young monk in yellow shirt turned out to be a beautiful woman with a frowning eyebrow and a skin as thick as fat, and the face of this woman was so delicate that she was not under Jia at all. After putting on a new mask right now, the female repairman has become a flat-faced male repairer with some pockmarks on his face. The mask of Nun 11 is extremely mysterious. No matter how you look at it now, you can't see that her face is covered with such a mask. And after the new mask was put on, the breath of the female nun changed, and became a monk who divided the two. The breath of the practice was completely different. It can be seen that this mask actually has the effect of completely changing the breath of the monk. At this moment, even if Wei Suo saw the female practitioner again, she could not recognize this female practitioner as Zhang Fenji. However, Wei Suo, who had done a hope-making technique, could not find out that other monks were naturally unable to see through. This stool is not what you want to sell. If you want to buy it, you can sell it. It seems that this gem-ground dragon has constipation. I saw that the female monk made such a change, but said something softly, and then his face was full of smiles. Obviously at this moment, she unconsciously thought of the scene of the conversation between Wei Suo and the black-robed middle-aged monk. He also used Yirong's panacea to disguise his true colors. This should be his true colors. There was a smile that could not help but the mouth of the woman looked around. After confirming that there was no one, she stretched out her hand again, but a transparent water rose in her hands. Know the change of the stop, and her eyes are also flashing at the same time. It seems that this transparent water light can condensate like what she thought. Surprisingly, only a few moments of interest, this transparent water light condenses into the face of a male cultivator, and the face of this male cultivator is actually similar to Wei Suo. Obviously, this mysterious fabulous female practicer actually had some kind of technique to see through the other's transfiguration. I just don't have any magic weapon. He gave me two things this time. He has the opportunity to thank him. After saying this softly, the face of the female nun was unconscious. A sorrowful expression appeared. Immediately after that, she flicked out of the remote alley. Actually, it sells adult monsters and beasts. This Fang city is in the south of Tianqian mainland. It should be regarded as the only one. At this time, Wei Suo was already in the square that had aroused his great interest but had a very simple appearance. This Fang city actually sells all kinds of live monsters, and most of them are grown adult monsters. At a glance, I saw hundreds of large and small fence enclosures arranged in this square city, and each enclosure was placed with one or several monsters. Most of these monsters look wild, and many monsters carry the wildness and scars that have been unique to the wild monsters for a long time. And these fences are only surrounded by ordinary wood, but there are some blue copper columns in the fence, and there are many chains covered with runes. The monsters bound by these chains are all supernatural. You can only walk around and call, there is no way to use the spell. There are many monks in the whole city, and these wild monsters are even more irrelevant. Eat and drink lasted together. The fence is almost like a pigsty. A variety of unpleasant tastes and breaths are mixed together. This square city is even more messy than outside. After Wei Suo walked in, there was no one to entertain at all. It seemed that the monks who entered this Fang city were all watching inside, seeing what monsters they were, and then called the shop assistants inside to trade. If you change the usual time, under this kind of environment, Wei Suo is certainly not interested in staying longer, because although this square city looks at a glance, there are nearly 100 kinds of monsters on sale, but these monsters are also the highest, no more than 5 levels of low order. Monsters of this level are of no use to Wei Suo, who has a heart eater, and his cultivation behavior. But Wei Suo did not immediately quit the Fangshi, but instead looked around and wandered. A moment later, we saw that Wei Suo had bought a fiery red beast that looked similar to the squirrel, and then left the smelly, dirty, and messy market. When Wei Suo left this square city, in the sky in the northernmost part of the Tianqian continent, 2 monks who had nothing to do with him were flying towards the sky dome connected to heaven and earth. One of the 2 monks was wearing an orange vest, with a sword-like rune on them. They were around 40 years old and no white face was needed, while the other monk was wearing a light gray vest with many coins on it. Rune, about 30 years old, with a long and narrow face and a black sheath flying sword on his back, is obviously a sword repairer who practiced the flying sword method. These 2 monks have a low level of training. The older white-faced middle-aged monks are divided into 3 levels, and the sword training in light gray vestments is also divided into 2 levels. At the moment, the 2 monks were white-faced middle-aged monks carrying a purple jade gourd-shaped flying dungeon, planted with 2 people, and flew towards the sky dome not far in front. Hunt monsters or collect other genius treasures. About 2 or 3,000 miles behind the 2 monks, a vaguely long and narrow city of monks built along a mountain range can be seen vaguely. Above the sky dome, there is a strange blue-black brilliance surging, just like a patch on the sky dome. And this blue and black brilliance can be seen clearly from thousands of miles away. Obviously, the length of this blue and black brilliance must be more than hundreds of feet, and the width is at least 10 feet. Around the blue and black brilliance, escape light flashed from time to time, as if there were monks patrolling and waiting there. If Weizhuo was here at this moment, he would definitely have to stop and even rush to the blue and black brilliance to see it, because Weizhuo had never been here, nor had he ever seen the faint light. There is such a strange blue-black brilliance on the sky of milky white aura. But at the moment the eyes of the 2 monks swept towards the place occasionally, but there was not even a trace of surprise on their faces. It was obvious that they knew why there was such a glorious light in that place. After just about a scent of incense, the 2 monks who had divided their thoughts were only 100 feet away from the sky-hounded sky. The purple jade gourd, the emperor of the white-faced middle-aged monk, obviously slowed down and stopped, and the faces of the 2 monks also showed a dignified and awe-inspiring look. Obviously, no matter what kind of monk, in front of the power of the sky, they have to be convinced. After a slight pause, it seems that after unconsciously admiring the power of the sky dome, the purple jade gourd that is 1 foot long is full of purple light again, which is re-excited, and the posture is to go out of the sky dome non-stop. However, it only flew less than 10 feet forward, and the purple jade gourd slammed in the air. Yedaiu, is this? At the same time, the middle-aged white-faced monk's breathing paused, and he glanced at the gray-shirt Jiangziu beside him. Just outside the sky dome where the 2 were facing each other, a little reddish light spot changed from small to big at an alarming speed. Between these 2 breaths, it suddenly turned into a huge reddish light with a diameter of more than a few feet. The regiment, with terrifying power, hit the sky dome fiercely. Boom! The sky where the middle-aged white-faced monk and the gray-shirt sword repair were shocked, the purple jade gourd jumped obviously in the air. The gleaming glory on the milky white sky do not seem to have any deformation at all, and the huge red light group bounced back at an amazing speed. Boom! Then this huge red light group was hardened by something, catch it in general, violently exploded outside the sky dome. Before the red light burst exploded, there were countless flames that rose, and the dense impact hit the sky dome here. Innumerable black shadows of various sizes vaguely appeared outside the sky dome. Don't. Gray-shirt Jiangxiu saw such a scene, suddenly reacted like something, his face became a trace of blood. Ah, while the middle-aged white-faced monk saw the gray-shirt Jiangxiu's face turned pale, he also figured out what was the same. Immediately after screaming, he turned the purple jade gourd in the direction he came, flee like crazy. Crack. 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 On top of the immobile sky dome behind them, the earth-shattering explosions continued. Click. It seems that the various colors of light and flames that impacted on the sky dome from the outside can't cause any damage to the sky dome at all, but at this moment it seems that the sky dome itself has some kind of qualitative change, which has along in the place, the aura suddenly thinned out slowly, and then there appeared lines of transparent crystal-like light. Immediately, on the sky dome, this place, which is 6 to 70 feet long and about 5 or 6 feet wide, becomes thinner, and suddenly the light disappears completely. A crack appeared suddenly above this sky-high heaven. What? I saw that these two monks just screamed in horror, and a lot of glories poured out of their bodies, and then they were instantly overwhelmed by the innumerable flames coming from the crack. All kinds of monsters, big and small, sprayed in from the rift like a fountain. Asterisk. The next chapter is at 9 p.m. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 457. Chapter 457 Old Lust Enemy. The great treasure hall behind the door of the Extreme Pleasure Palace is a few hundred feet away from the blue light. Vertex novels, handwriting novels. All of the entire great treasure halls are paved with crystal clear and beautiful jade. The middle is a walkway, but it is a pattern of dragon and phoenix and auspicious clouds in pure gold. There are also many pure gold ornaments on both sides, such as the immortal crane-shaped gold incense burner, the gold enamel inlaid with pearls, and the pure golden lotus leaves and lotus flowers. Two leading fascinating female cultivators walked to the end of the great treasure hall. After the blue spirit light, there was nothing. It flashed straight into the blue spirit light in front. After Reverend Black Wolf and Wei Suo looked at each other, they did not move the step of surging sound into the blue light. It's like passing a shapeshift great art array. Wei Suo only feels like Blue Guanghua will send himself up. He and Reverend Black Wolf are already bright, and they have been secret place in a square house. This huge hall is full of 304 feet. Even if there are thousands of people coming in at the same time, it will not appear crowded at all. The ground and the four walls are also beautiful jade. There are many pure gold pillars in it, and the doors and windows are pure. Made of gold, it is now open. Outside the doorway, there is a cloud-filled square. Looking out from the open window, you can see many nearby temples, and you can see the sky above Yongxia. This huge hall is actually close to the top of the entire Extreme Pleasure Palace. In the center of the entire Great Hall, there is a layer of red jade, which is also decorated with many red ornaments and a festive look. On both sides of the central passage, there are many gold-plated great treasure chairs with red velvet blankets. In front of each great treasure chair, there is a wide great treasure gold case with wine cellars, fruit bowls, etc. There are many kinds of fruit, wine, and other foods placed on it. At the end of the northern part of the Great Hall, the entire wall is engraved with the relief of the gorgeous female cultivator. Each costume looks different and vivid. In front of the wall, a hollow gold chair with a wider great treasure looks very powerful. On both sides of this great treasure hall, there are also many golden armor cultivators standing in the hands of Jinji. In addition, there are many glamorous female cultivators on both sides of this great treasure hall, the Fukin of Fukin, the Kite of the Kite. The bells of the bells, as well as the glamorous female cultivator, are sung and dance. At the moment, it is obvious that on the pure gold great treasure chair on both sides of the visiting cultivator, more than a dozen cultivators have been taken. As soon as I saw Reverend Black Wolf and Wei Suo in the blue light on the side of the hall, the dozen or so cultivators in the room suddenly looked at the two. Wei Suo is silent for the 4 sweeps of surging sound. There are more than 30 female cultivators in the great treasure hall. There is no Nangong Yuking, and among the dozens of golden core cultivators that have already arrived, they are also known. Nothing. However, there are 3 cultivators, but it immediately attracted his attention. One of them was an old man dressed as a Confucian scholar, who wore a peculiar orange-red shapeshift great art dress, and shapeshift great art clothes had 2 spray-like carp-shaped rune, which were ordinary, but the 2 eyebrows were snow-white buletin tt white, body out of the spiritual chi, but in its body formed a towering Beihung, shot out more than 10 jong. One is a cultivator dressed as a Taoist priest, wearing a snow-white but white robe with a face that is 30 years old and looks very handsome. The spiritual chi on his body is silvery white and formed outside his body. A silver handle with a handle. The other one is the majestic square-faced purple-robed middle-aged cultivator. It looks like the age of 40 years old, and the purple spiritual chi on the body actually formed a purple kunpeng shape of 3 or 4 feet above the head. By Hongguan, kunpeng flying, these are the amazing variation scenery of spiritual chi condense. Among the 3, the old man dressed by Confucianism and the shapeshift great art of this purple-robed middle-aged cultivator are definitely different. From this spiritual chi variation scenery, and the breath of the body should be the heaven-level great shapeshift great art. The reason why the cultivator dressed by the Taoist priest attracted Wei Suo's attention first, because the pressure on the cultivator was significantly higher than the rest of the cultivator, obviously golden core second layer. And like Xuanhuan old ancestor, it has reached the great treasure cultivator of the golden core second layer late stage. The first impression of these 3 people is that divine ability is not a small posture, but Wei Suo is also very clear, and there must be a lot of special guys in the other golden core cultivator. Reverend Black Wolf, you are here too. This fellow deist is your friend, it is very raw. Just when Wei Suo was silently looking for surging sound, a middle-aged long cultivator wearing a brocade suit stood up, and laughter greeted Reverend Black Wolf. Hung, at the same time, another grivet face cultivator of another secret place, but he is coldly stunned by surging sound, seems to have a great treasure opinion on Reverend Black Wolf, turned the head, do not look at Reverend, look at Black Wolf. It turned out to be Lu fellow deist. Reverend Black Wolf also arched his hand and greeted the middle-aged cultivator of surging sound, but his eyes swept to the grey-faced cultivator, which was cold-sounding, and Reverend Black Wolf's face was a glimpse of a glimpse. I don't care about the name of the grey cultivator, and it doesn't look very familiar to the rest. There is no intercourse lusts golden core cultivator, and after I have said hello, I am going to the name of Lujin robed cultivator. Going over, this is fellow deist G, also a rogue cultivator outside of Celebrations Dome. It is a friend I have recently met. Fellow deist G, this is fellow deist, the elder of Blue Luin sect, and a friend of mine who has been intercourse lust. When we were the heavenly circuit realm cultivator, we used to work together. Blue Luin sect elder, Wei Suo arched his hand at Lu Chi and said hello, his eyes flashing a look of suspicion. Fellow deist G, what? Seeing your appearance seems a bit strange to my identity. Lucy looked at Wei Suo and asked strangely. This kind of intercourse is easy, isn't it? Only done in rogue cultivator, Wei Suo said. Nature is not. Lu Chi gave a slight glimpse and shook his head. If it's just the rogue cultivator, there are so many golden core cultivators. It turned out that I thought that this kind of intercourse would be spontaneously organized between rogue cultivators. I was surprised to hear that fellow deist was a sect cultivator. It was only recently that core formation was successful, and there was not much understanding of the golden core cultivator, which made fellow deist laugh. Wei Suo smiled embarrassedly. Blue Luin sect, he is very clear, is the sect in charge of Blue Luin city. The strength of the great treasure is similar to Eastern Jade Paradise, and is also a city in the 15th city of Nantian. It seems that fellow deist G is the first time to participate in this intercourse. Lucy is also like Reverend Black Wolf. It is not difficult to touch. After a smile, it is light surging sound, and Weisuo introduced it. In the past, this intercourse is also the cultivator among section. After all, rogue cultivator, the number of golden core cultivators is very small. Like the fellow deist that is currently on the scene, the great treasure is also the cultivator of section. Like the spiritual chi, the white rainbow is the heavenly sword. Reverend of cloud-piercing sword sect, the spiritual chi, the silver white robes, the palace lord of the stainless palace. Reverend Weisuo was in the heart, and the two people Lu Chi said at the moment were two of the three people he had noticed before. The great treasure is also the divine ability of the two people. It is indeed beyond the general golden core cultivator, so at this moment Lu Kake specifically mentioned what about the spiritual chi outside the shape of the grey cultivator in the shape of a scorpion? What is his origin? How do I see him seem to have an enmity with Reverend Black Wolf? Haha, as soon as he heard Weisuo say, Lu Saitan couldn't help but smile, and Reverend Black Wolf looked like a sly look, and didn't go to the grey vest cultivator that had a cold surging sound before. Speaking of this, I have to blame Reverend Black Wolf for his charm too great. See Reverend Black Wolf, this pair of appearance, luch but can't help teasing general, to the Weisuo low surging sound set up, the grey robe cultivator named Elon King, is King Mountain Rogue cultivator, although he golden is also the core of the layer cultivator, but the general golden core cultivator, also is not easy to provoke, because his Dao companion Qingping is also golden core cultivator, and the two have a unique shapeshift great art, powerful great treasure. Qingping Reverend is the one around him at the moment. Reverend Black Wolf joined forces with them to explore the great treasure 10 years ago. I don't know what happened. After that, the Dragon King always suspected that Reverend Black Wolf and Qingping were infected, which was extremely uncomfortable for Reverend Black Wolf. With the naked body in the end, the two have not died. I don't know, I doubt that the two really have something, or else how the Dragon King does not eat our vinegar, just eat his own vinegar. Fellow deist is going to make fun of it. Listening to Lu Chi, Reverend Black Wolf suddenly bitterly said, I am very happy to talk to Qingping. I have to say something more. I know where the Dragon King will think so much. For more than 10 years, I have also regarded me as a lust enemy. Really, Weisuo was happy at first. Sneak peek, at the moment the grey cultivator is next to the Dragon King, but it is indeed the only golden core stage female cultivator in the great treasure hall. I saw this female cultivator wearing Asian robes, a simple hair on the head, a bright tooth, although the 5 features are not stunning, but it does look very elegant and elegant. At the moment, Weisuo sneaked a glance, but it seemed to be noticed by the grey cultivator. The Qingping next to him was a little embarrassed blush on his face. He glared at the Dragon King and his lips were slightly moving, and it seemed to be reprimanding the Dragon King. It seems uncomfortable to be uncomfortable, but when it was rebuked by Qingping, the grey cultivator was not daring to pay back. Sit down and talk. Reverend Black Wolf, who was awkward, didn't dare to look over there. After saying this to Lu Chi and Weisuo, the three sat down. At this time, the blue flash of intuition and other golden core stage cultivators arrived. The red ticket continues to be popular. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 458. Chapter 458 Golden Core Great Treasure. Under the Blu-ray flash of intuition, another cultivator emerged from it. Vertex Novels, handwriting novels. At this time, there are more than 20 golden core stage cultivators in the entire Great Treasure Hall. After the arrival of Weisuo and Reverend Black Wolf, 6 or 7 golden core cultivators arrived. During this period of time, under the introduction of Reverend Black Wolf and Lu Qi, Wei Suo has also known all the golden core cultivators in it, including only 4 golden core stage cultivators with Reverend Black Wolf and Lu Qi. I don't know, so I don't know. Among the more than 20 golden core cultivators that have arrived, the golden core cultivator insect really accounts for more than half, and these golden core cultivators are present, whether it is the cultivator insect or the rogue cultivator, the great treasure part. It is not the southern cultivator of heavenly profound continent, many of which come from the west, central region of heavenly profound continent. It seems that the golden core stage cultivator is indeed a circle of its own, just the dragon intercourse dragon, phoenix intercourse phoenix. If it is not enough, even if you know such a circle, there is no shapeshift great art in such a circle. I didn't expect him to come. At this time, the new cultivator is just an original, the cultivator in the Great Treasure Hall is obviously slightly different, and the Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy who are talking at the intercourse are also slightly surprised. Intercourse changed his eyes. What is this origin? Wei Suo knows that this person's origins are definitely different and look carefully. I saw this person is actually a beautiful man, dashing eyebrows star, hair directly tied with a cyan belt on the behind the head, very free and easy, wearing a silky sheet metal shapeshift great art clothing. This shapeshift great art clothing is very simple, dragged to the ground, both cover the feet of this cultivator. The spiritual chi that was thrown out of the cultivator was blue-yellow, and formed a wild-like beast with 4 wings and a naked body and a tiger. If the spiritual chi metamorphosis of most cultivators in the presence is immortal chi, then the spiritual chi of the cultivator is full of wild and ferocious atmosphere. This person's reputation is quite treasure, the Palace Lord Li Ruohe of Myriad Tomb City Spirit Beast Palace. Fellow Daoist, you should have heard of this person? Upon hearing Wei Suo's inquiries, Reverend Black Wolf immediately responded with a low surging sound. This guy turned out to be Li Ruohe of Xuanhuan. Wei Suo was stunned and nodded immediately. The name of the Spirit Beast Palace Lord is of course extremely great treasure. There are even a lot of high-level cultivators that privately think that heavenly profound continent is in the 15 cities in the south. Now, if you really fight for it, the most powerful thing is probably the Spirit Beast Palace Lord Li Ruohe. Reverend Black Wolf, Lu fellow Daoist, said that he might have a few high-level monster beasts on his body. Do you know what monster beast is on him? While continuing to look at the seemingly inconspicuous, self-satisfied Spirit Beast Palace Lord, Wei Suo low surging sound asked this again. Li Ruohe, this person usually doesn't play intercourse with people, although the Great Treasure family said that he has several high-level monster beasts on his body, but the cultivator with his intercourse has basically died in his hands. There is a monster beast in the naked body. It is estimated that the cultivator present is not known. Lucy does not move the sound of the sound transmission to the ears of Wei Suo and Reverend Black Wolf. I know that Starbucks Reverend is in his hands anyway. This person's divine ability is definitely far exceeds us. We don't want it, is just that he is provoked. This person is only extremely short-sighted, and the temper is not strange. This is Yunhan Reverend, the elder of Immortal Ascension Sect, Immortal Ascension Sect and Lingyunji Unzone. The Immortal Ascension Sect is based on the 8 words of Xianyun Liudan and Sihai Shangping. The 4 generations of Sihai Shangping are all ordinary disciples. They are already elders in the stream, the Golden Core Cultivation Base, and the Divine Mystic Realm Great Treasure Cultivator. Just the Immortal Ascension Section Divine Mystic Realm's Great Treasure Cultivator has not been seen for thousands of years. This is the Arfox Reverend, a rogue cultivator from the heavenly profound continent central region and the secret part intercourse secret place. It's so far away. I've also seen this cultivator at the intercourse, plus his spiritual chi transformation is unique and recognizes this person. After a while, another 7 or 8 cultivators came one after another. I don't think that this golden core cultivator intercourse will have such a scale. The number and size of cultivators on the scene is also getting more and more surprised by Wei Suo. Among the 7 or 8 cultivators present, the Reverend Black Wolf and Lvich highlighted Raven and Baihu Reverend, both of which are the cultivation bases of the Golden Core second layer. In this way, even if the cultivator of the cultivation base is hidden by the special shapeshift great art, the fresh treasure cultivator of the Golden Core second layer cultivation base is already in existence from the perspective of the cultivator. Now there are more than 30 Golden Core stage cultivators present. The spiritual chi of these people is full of colors and clouds, which makes the whole great treasure hall seem unspeakable. Not to mention the general cultivator, even the first time to participate in this Golden Core stage cultivator party, Weisuo, has a sense of shock like a fairy party. But at this time, the blue light flashed twice in succession, and almost all the cultivators in the great treasure hall were stagnant. 2 cultivators came out one after another. In front of it was a low old deist wearing a great treasure blue, covered with runes robes. The old deist's hair is yellow and plain, and the spiritual chi on his body condenses a gray-black talisman with a great treasure behind him. On the rectangular talisman, rune twists, like a ghost, and you can't see what it is. The other cultivator is a tall great treasure, wearing a purple shapeshift great art gown. The face is very square and majestic. The spiritual chi outside is bright yellow and forms the shape of a golden armor. Next, I feel that an overwhelming power is coming. At a glance, the 2 cultivators that came out one after another, Weisuo suddenly felt a glimpse. The pressure on these 2 cultivators is significantly higher than the Golden Core second layer cultivator like Li Ruohe. Between the walks, the extremely strong spiritual chi of the body drove the surrounding air, bringing out a stream of air, which caused the air in the entire great treasure hall to flow. The wind flowed, and the spiritual chi outside the rest of the cultivator was blown, so that the shape of all the Golden Core cultivators outside the entire great treasure hall seemed to be shaking, and there was a little turmoil for the arrival of the 2 cultivators. Look like that. These 2 cultivators, the cultivation base, reached the great treasure cultivator of the Golden Core third layer. The old devil and heaven-catching Reverend have come, the faces of Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy are all changing. What is the origin of these 2? Weisuo does not move, surging sound color asking with sound transmission. The old devil was the supreme elder of the heavenly profound continent in the Eastern Owl. The Yinfuzong is now in the heavenly profound continent Eastern All cities. Although it is not comparable to the Immortal Ascension sect, the old devil has been there for decades. In the name of the East number 1 cultivator, among the eastern cities, no cultivator has surrendered to him. Reverend Black Wolf low surging sound transmission to Weisuo. As for heaven-catching Reverend, it is a rogue cultivator. The general cultivator doesn't know where his cave is. He just heard that he happened to get a chance in his early years. The inheritance of the ancient rogue cultivator has the cultivation base of today. This person's work, shapeshift great art, is very strange. It is said that when it is against the enemy, the naked body can be turned into a toughness with the shapeshift great art great treasure. Seeing that the 2 cultivators entered, the cultivator great treasure that was previously present was not consciously revealing some awesome looks, and the older devil who had entered the first all cities number 1 cultivator in the east was the person who took care of himself, found a golden chair and sat down, and did not talk to others intercourse. The heaven-catching Reverend, which entered later, came to the side of the 4 cultivators opposite Weisuo and others. He sat down and seemed to be familiar with the 4 cultivators, talking about the intercourse of the lips. For a long time, 7 or 8 Golden Core cultivators were on the scene. By the time the sun set, the entire Golden Penture Palace, the Golden Core stage cultivator, reached more than 40. It sounds a little, but it's really amazing, because the entire Golden of Cultivator Core sect and East 15 cities of all sect in the whole heavenly profound continent South 15 city Golden Sea or Cultivator combined, and no more than 20, even with the establishment of Dongfu in the vicinity of the South and East, the Golden Core stage rogue cultivator, which is often active in the region, will never exceed 40. Listening to Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy, the intercourse will definitely be the face of Reverend Extreme Happiness. Otherwise, the previous intercourse will be easy, and the golden core cultivator will be more than 20 at the time. It will never be like today is so amazing. In the next period of time, there is no new golden core stage cultivator appearance. The great treasure outside the temple gradually darkened, and the intercourse in the great treasure hall talked about the surging sound, but it slowly calmed down. Because Reverend Extreme Happiness said that the ceremony was started at sunset and sunset, Reverend Extreme Happiness should also be on the scene soon. The cultivator that is coming, should have arrived now, not coming at this time. It is estimated that this will not come. Suddenly, a surging sound whistle. On the square outside the giant hall, dozens of red flames were suddenly shot, mapping the great treasure half of the extreme pleasure palace. The Viking hammer is surging sound. A row of ladies and female cultivator, carrying a variety of things, from the end of the square in the clouds, like a fairy. Fellow deist has been waiting for you. Then, let Wei Suo's brow slammed, with a surging sound of a surging sound, a blazing golden light spurted out of the clouds, a white hair, wearing a gold crown, wearing a great treasure red robe, the cultivator, which looks like a 40-year-old cultivator, appears in the sight of all cultivators. The golden spiritual chi, outside of this person, condense a shape of a great treasure tree with oval fruit. The golden rhythm of the rhythm between the Ming and the dynasty makes this great treasure tree look like it is in the constant circulation of origin chi. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 459. Chapter 459 is eye-catching. The momentum and pressure of Old Devil and Heaven catching Reverend in the former Great Treasure Hall have been amazing, but when this person appeared, the momentum of these people was completely suppressed. Vertex novels, handwriting novels. Obviously this person's body is not particularly high great treasure, but the feeling of giving people seems to be higher than all the cultivator present. This cultivator is obviously the master of this extreme pleasure palace, Reverend Extreme Happiness. Congratulations to Reverend Extreme Happiness. When you hear Reverend Extreme Happiness, the golden core cultivator in the great treasure hall is a kind of cautious look. It doesn't talk, and there is also a small half of the golden core cultivator, but it is a flattering, and there are surging sounds. Congratulations. Wei Suo does not move the surging sound color to look at this Reverend Extreme Happiness. From the variation scenery of the spiritual chi variant outside Reverend Extreme Happiness, the shapeshift great art is not the heaven level great art of heaven level, but also the shapeshift great art of earth level low grade. Visible Reverend Extreme Happiness. This person is truly amazing giant treasure luck, not because of the low level of the shapeshift great art, so you can repair the cultivation base of the golden core's fourth layer. Like his shapeshift great art level, the cultivator of the golden core fourth layer, the golden core powerful energy is definitely very terrifying. So many fellow deists condescend to my extreme pleasure palace, which really makes my extreme pleasure palace shine. Reverend Extreme Happiness has a lazy glance, but it seems that Wei Suo's is not noticed at all, and it is directly in the group of ladies, and the colorful female cultivator carrying all kinds of festive things. At the end of the great treasure hall, I sat down on the great treasure seat with great treasure. Fellow deist Chi, Qingping fellow deist, I was trying to bring a letter to the two. Since the two fellow deists are right, there is something to discuss with the two. After sitting down on the pure gold great treasure seat, Reverend Extreme Happiness suddenly looked at the two cultivators and said something like this. The two cultivators are exactly the golden core couples who have some entanglements with Reverend Black Wolf, the cultivator Qi Longshan and Qingping. Reverend Extreme Happiness, please, I heard this, not to mention Qi Longshan and Qingping. Even the rest of the golden core cultivator in the great treasure hall, the face is a slight change. I don't know what is going to happen. There is a cultivator with a surname of Lu, which is somewhat offensive to both. But this person's ancestors have something to do with me. He doesn't know that the cultivator he killed has something to do with the two. If he knows, he doesn't dare. So I came to the door and wanted me to ask for a lust. I wonder if the two fellow deists can look at my face and let go of this person? Reverend Extreme Happiness looks at Qi Longshan and Qingping. The faces of Qi Longshan and Qingping are obviously sinking. It is clear that the cultivator killed by the surnamed cultivator is not too shallow. However, after a slight flash of his eyes, Qi Longshan still bit his teeth, and coldly nodded. Since Reverend Extreme Happiness is asking for his lust, then the two of us will not find the trouble of this person in the future. Then I will thank you first. Reverend Extreme Happiness smiles lightly. Although his words are very polite, but in 1 or 2 sentences, he will expose a murderous level of great treasure revenge, and the other party is not an ordinary golden core cultivator, so the understatement is flat, invisible. It is full of power. Well, this may lead to some unsatisfactory little things about the great treasure, and then I will be jealous. This woman started today, it is my concubine. If you see fellow deist in the future, if there is any conflict, but you have to leave some lust. There was no nonsense, and after looking back from Qi Longshan and Qingping, Reverend Extreme Happiness said this. When you hear Reverend Extreme Happiness, Wei Suo is naturally a glimpse of the heart, but at the same time, it is the surging sound great treasure. I saw a female dressed in a palace dress on the outside of the temple. The female cultivator slowly descended from the clouds. One of the women in the phoenix red Xiaoyi was in the middle, with a red gauze on her face. At first glance, this gorgeous female cultivator was extremely flanked, and Wei Suo suddenly shuddered. Although the figure of this gorgeous female cultivator is very embarrassing, it gives a wonderful feeling of national color and fragrance at first glance, but its petite body is obviously not Nangong looking. But next to him was a maid carrying a red jade lily, but there was a fish in the waist and it was called Jade Talisman. And this female cultivator is very thin, obviously not Nangong looking. If the concubine that Reverend Extreme Happiness wants to receive is Nangong looking, there may not be any volatility on the Wei Suo surface that may be prepared, but the lust shape at the moment is the Wei Suo great for the Nangong looking. Treasure as expected, his eyes suddenly became unpredictable. Fellow deist G, please restrain yourself. Wei Suo's reaction, which falls in the eyes of Reverend Black Wolf, is that the concubine is the Nangong looking that Wei Suo is looking for. Reverend Black Wolf is afraid that Wei Suo will make a mess at the moment, but his heart suddenly becomes tight. Sound transmission reminds Wei Suo of a sentence. Wei Suo did not speak either. The horse did not look at the rest of the female cultivator, but at first glance, but did not see the familiar figure. This woman is called Yu Yue. Today, fellow deist is a witness, and now he is concubine. There is no cumbersome etiquette at all. After wearing the female cultivator of the Phoenix Xuanhuan walk in front of Reverend Extreme Happiness in a cluster of female cultivators, Reverend Extreme Happiness reaches for a little, and the red yarn on the face of this female cultivator removed. I saw this female cultivator, a face, although the facial features are not the kind of Liya that I saw at first sight, but the skin is like curd, white and extremely quiet, but it looks very quiet, but don't have a moving color. After welcoming all the cultivators in the room and drinking a glass of wine from the surrounding maids, Reverend Extreme Happiness was very domineering. He took the female cultivator and sat next to him. Looking at his posture, this martyrdom ceremony is such a simple completion. Among the more than 40 golden core stage cultivators, many of them are as amazing as Wei Suo, but there are also many cultivators, but they have already seen Reverend Extreme Happiness, knowing it will be so simple. Nothing unexpected. This time you gave me face and came so many people. But there should be more good things, just to offset the time I was wasting. Fellow deist. If you have nothing to say about fellow deist, how about intercourse now? Then, Reverend Extreme Happiness said something lazily. Reverend Extreme Happiness is too polite, but it's really a little anxious in the next place. It's better to throw a brick at the bottom. How about starting from the bottom? A surging sound with a very strong nasal sound slammed immediately. Following the surging sound, the cultivator, which issued the surging sound, was the cultivator of the three cultivators that attracted Wei Suo's attention from the beginning. The purple cultivator is the cultivation base of the golden core second layer. The purple spiritual chi on the top of the head is a purple kunpeng shape that forms a giant treasure. The name of the cultivator Wei Suo has also been heard from the Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy's mouth. It is a rogue cultivator in the eastern part of heavenly profound continent. It is called Reverend and is also famous in the golden core stage cultivator. Below only as a host, drink a surging sound, and then naturally it is up to you to follow the rules of the intercourse. Although Reverend Extreme Happiness is a figure that is significantly higher than the rest of the cultivator, it is not difficult to talk at this moment, nodded and said. Since Reverend Extreme Happiness said that, I wouldn't talk nonsense. The face is also very majestic purple robe. Reverend is also welcome. Stand up and take a light shot on his treasure receiving pocket. Under the pale yellow magnificent light flashes, a transparent crystal stone pill bottle appeared in the hand. I saw this ordinary vase-like great treasure crystal stone pill bottle. There is a group of emerald green brilliance, and underneath, there is a rhizome with a similar shape to the hippocampus, and this root is still like it is the same as living, and it will be active in this transparent pill bottle. Aphrodisiac. Now there are several golden core cultivators looking at the name of the object. Yes, this thing is aphrodisiac, and it has reached such a point that the year has reached more than 500 years. Hearing some golden core cultivator shouting the name of the object, Tengxia Reverend nodded a little, and looked around for a week. The effect of this thing does not need me to say more. I want to exchange a level 7 high-level wind attribute monster core. Swallowing Reverend, there is such a monster core in the hands of the next. Do you think it is useful? When I saw something in this transparent crystal stone pill bottle, Wei Suo's eyes were obviously flickered for a moment, but before he could do anything, a blue-robed cultivator with a sullen face was already stretched out. A blue light flew to the front of the swallowing Reverend. Oh! Swallowing Reverend, some delighted, reached out and grabbed the blue light in his hand. He just glanced at it and nodded with satisfaction. This St. Louis green monster core is of good quality. After saying this, he directly threw the transparent crystal stone pill bottle in his hand to the blue-robed cultivator. Wei Suo glanced at the blue-robed cultivator and found that the heaven-catching Reverend of the golden core third-layer cultivation base was sitting on a seat next to the blue-robed cultivator. At this moment, there was no trace of Nangong Yuking. Wei Suo was quiet for a while. Sound transmission, asked Reverend Black Wolf around him. Reverend, this intercourse is easy to get. If you want to bid for something, is there any rules? In order to avoid unnecessary disputes and save some of the rhetoric, to bid for something, the intercourse rule is to bid on something more high and high, such as swallowing Xia Reverend at the moment asking for a level 7 of Wind D attribute monster core to intercourse change. You can only use level 8 low grade above wind attribute monster beast core to intercourse change, cannot use other great treasure things, to and swallow Xia Reverend bargain. Reverend Black Wolf lowing surging sound saying, and this kind of intercourse is easy, unless it is a must-have thing. Generally it is best not to bid easily, otherwise the pressure of the cultivator will certainly be unhappy, maybe in the future will lead some trouble. This fellow deist is very raw. I don't know where to practice in the secret place. This intercourse is easy. What do you want to intercourse? At this time, it was easy to see the intercourse of Wingxia Reverend and the blue-robed cultivator, and a surging sound sounded suddenly and faintly. At this moment, the sound of this surging sound is exactly Reverend Extreme Happiness. His gaze at the moment is deeply rooted in Wei Suo, who is listening to Reverend Black Wolf. For a time, all the eyes of the golden core cultivator in the great treasure hall were gathered on Wei Suo's. 8. There are book friends who despise the couple, saying that you are still dare to ask for a red ticket in the past 93. I can only say with a thick face, grace for some time, grace for a few days, Recently it is already faintly in the code word, too many chores in the name of, it is guaranteed that in the current state, the three are really outbreaks. Then he said awkwardly, when people fight for updates, people don't fight now, it's a red ticket with people, and the great treasure family picks up the red ticket first. Il equals display none. Il equals display none. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 460. Chapter 460 I am willing. He next is the rogue cultivator outside of heaven's dome. As for this intercourse, I want to buy a pure void vine and a Buddha nature holy fruit. Wei Suo's heart is fierce, but the face is still surging sound color, no nonsense, directly said, as for the fellow deist who owns these two things, what do you want to intercourse? Can be said to see if you can meet below. /p. Pure void vine and Buddha nature holy fruit are the keys to the culture immortal root 5 secrets. If you can get these two things, the culture immortal root 5 secrets, if you condense two golden cores and immortal spiritual roots, then the Wei Suo's divine ability will soon be a great treasure. It is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to gather so many golden core cultivators, and Wei Suo is naturally first mentioned. Pure void vine? Buddha nature holy fruit? /p. After Wei Suo's surging sound, there are quite a few cultivators that repeat the names of these two things in the entire great treasure hall, but no one has proposed intercourse. It is obvious that these cultivators either have neither of these things at all, or they are I also use great treasure myself, I don't want to take out intercourse. This fellow deist, it seems that the two things you want are going to be lost. Is there anything else to intercourse? Reverend Extreme Happiness is a lazy look at Wei Suo, and he doesn't know if he wants to point to Wei Suo at the moment. What exactly is shapeshift great art? Under the market, I want to buy 2 gold, Dao pill. If there is no gold, Dao pill, other equals can help core formation, and medicine pill can improve the core formation success rate. Wei Suo looks at the microflash. Oh. /p. Hearing Wei Suo, the opposite side of the opposite wearing a loose-looking robe, the spiritual chi condense outside the body, an immortal crane-like old deist, immediately looked at Wei Suo and said, in the next hand there is a snow-white butt, Dao pill, which is almost the same as Jineo Dao pill. I don't know if fellow deist is interested. If it is snow-white butt Dao pill, it can be. This Dan not only has the same effect on the condensate as Dao pill, but also eliminates many of the attributes of fire attribute medicine pill, which is better than Jineo Dao pill. Ei Suo nodded. I don't know if fellow deist wants to intercourse for something. The next step is to use intercourse for a rainbow algae and a divine mystic iron. If there is no such thing as this great treasure small rainbow algae and divine mystic iron enough, he old deist is still in the sinking. If there aren't those two things, what can be used instead? I haven't thought about it yet, but I saw that Wei Suo has said this in a light way, taking two things out of the treasure receiving pocket. Reaching out and pointing directly to the name of the old deist. This person doesn't look very amazing. It should be just a new golden core cultivator. But the collection on the body seems to be quite a lot. Even such rare materials are taken out at first glance. The two things that Wei Suo pointed out, the old deist wearing a pine robes was a slight glimpse, and the rest of the golden core cultivator couldn't help but change their eyes and re-evaluate Wei Suo got up. They didn't know that when Wei Suo was at Cloud Spirit Continent, the rainbow algae that happened to be a good great treasure piece, just took out a fraction of it, and this time it almost robbed all the sects of all elite cultivators. The things on the body, at this moment, if the body is mixed and rich, I am afraid that the cultivator present is difficult to surpass Wei Suo's. I don't think of fellow deist's body, it just happens to have these two things, so much is almost the same. After a slight glimpse, he took Wei Suo to the rainbow algae in front of him and the old deist of divine mystic iron. He suddenly had a pleasant look on his face and immediately took out a tiny blue pill bottle made from ice. Reaching out and shooting in front of Wei Suo's Thank you for fellow deist. Eisuo opened the lid of the pill bottle and just glanced at it. He nodded to the unforgettable old deist and closed the pill bottle. T seems that fellow deist still has a different level of medicine pill. After completing this intercourse, there was no one to mention Weisuo intercourse, but Reverend Extreme Happiness looked at Weisuo with a light look. Fellow deist has something to intercourse. Easy great treasure. What? As for the things I want to buy are almost the same, then look at the fellow deist. Are there anything that makes me particularly excited? Weisuo said this after he did not humble, but looked at Reverend Extreme Happiness and said slowly, just in the downside, I want to ask Reverend for a message. Elo deist G/P. As soon as we heard Weisuo say, Reverend Black Wolf suddenly turned pale. Treasure, and the sound transmission shouted Weisuo. He didn't know, only the concubine for this moment was the friend of Weisuo, for fear that Weisuo would take the opportunity to ask for the name of Reverend Extreme Happiness, causing Reverend Extreme Happiness's thunder. Ask me for a message. Reverend Extreme Happiness looked at Weisuo with a slight squint. What news? After a few years ago, I was separated from a friend who was always in contact with Jade Talisman. Eisuo at the moment is also as if not heard. Reverend Black Wolf reminder general, still do not move. Surging sound color. Look at Reverend Extreme Happiness, directly to the waist hung the arraignment Jade Talisman took in the hands. This kind of communications Jade Talisman although is very low grade, but also very rare, since a set, but just I was in Reverend a maid body, see this thing. So heart shocked, do not know Reverend this maid, no I don't know the whereabouts of my friend. /P. Weisuo as the saying goes, the great treasure in the great treasure hall is a glimpse of the most cultivators, and the Reverend Extreme Happiness is a flash of light in the eyes, directly on the side of a maid. The maid, officially has the maid who call Jade Talisman. Since Weisuo has spoken, she has never looked at the maid, but Reverend Extreme Happiness has looked directly at the maid. It is obvious that Weisuo's extremely subtle lust changes have already fallen into the eyes of Reverend Extreme Happiness. Between vision flickered, there is no bliss. Some people have any movements. I saw Jade Talisman, the messenger of the maid, flying in the air and suspended in front of Reverend Extreme Happiness. Reverend Extreme Happiness has no point on the lust, and a trace of true UN breaks into the fish-shaped Jade Talisman. The communication Jade Talisman in Weisuo's hands is also put on the Xuanhuan Great Treasure. What's going on here? Reverend Extreme Happiness glanced at the slightly skinny maid, a touch of faintness. The maid was a little distracted, and surging sound said, this piece of Jade Talisman is from Nangong Shimei intercourse. Is her, hearing the word Nangong, Weisuo's heart is naturally shocked, and Reverend Extreme Happiness is also something surprised, but it does not do surging sound, just look at the maid, it is obviously indicating her explanation. And Gong Shimei also said that this piece of Jade Talisman was used to contact her a lost friend, because I often go out to take charge of some purchases and go back and forth in several cities, so she put this piece of Jade Talisman on me, please take me by the way. Find the whereabouts of her friend. The maid did not dare to have any concealed look, and her face was slightly white. You call her over. Reverend Extreme Happiness is swaying without a lust. The maid immediately did not dare to speak, and quickly walked out of the great treasure hall and disappeared into the clouds outside the square. Reverend Extreme Happiness didn't talk for a while, and the cultivator present didn't know Reverend Extreme Happiness. At the moment, what I wanted was shapeshift great art. The great treasure hall was silent. Only some cultivators' spiritual chi excited the surrounding air. Slight wind surging sound. It was only a moment of time. It seemed that the maid was not daring in the temple, but when she went out of the hall, she was desperate to hurry, and her figure quickly flashed out of the hall. What followed her was a slender female cultivator wearing a white shapeshift great art suit, and her face was slightly whitish. The face of this female cultivator is also absolute beauty, especially the appearance is very proud, and now at a glance at the great treasure in the temple holding the communication Jade Talisman's Weisuo, The female body of the female cultivator cannot help but tremble. Wei Suo is also shocked at this moment. This name is female cultivator, not Nangong Yuking, or who? This fellow deist. It seems that the friend you said is my female disciple. Reverend Extreme Happiness at this point coldly issued a surging sound. Yes, she is indeed my good friend of the year. Wei Suo does not move the surging sound color. Hearing the words of Wei Suo's, Nangong Yuking's naked body was another tremble. At the moment, Wei Suo changed the shape slightly with change appearance pill, but at the moment she has already heard the Wei Suo's surging sound. I don't think you can find someone else to find my extreme pleasure palace. Reverend Extreme Happiness coldly glanced at Wei Suo and said nothing. Lust said, now she is here in the secret place, what do you say about shapeshift great art? Under the daring, if she is willing to go with me, can she let her leave the extreme pleasure palace? Wei Suo took a look at Nangong Yuking and said nothing. You are very straightforward. I might as well tell you that this woman is also a cultivator who used his teacher's relationship with me and asked me to include it. Reverend Extreme Happiness sneered, now I have accepted her as a disciple, but you suddenly have to take her away. Is it because my extreme pleasure palace wants to enter and come out? I don't say anything else. It's just the shadow shift great art that I passed to her. It's spread to me. It's also a great treasure for my extreme pleasure palace. /P. Of course, these are also clear. Wei Suo nodded, and said, I don't know if there is any condition for Reverend. If it can be satisfied, it must be satisfied. Nangong Yuking, you still remember this person in my palace. It seems that there is some lust between you. Reverend Extreme Happiness sneered at a surging sound and didn't answer Wei Suo, but he first looked at Nangong Yuking, who stood in the temple and didn't dare to move. I am asking you now, do you want to go with this person? Chiyu Shizun, if he must want me to go with him. I don't. Nangong Yuking took a deep breath, and decided to make a general, slowly. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 461. Chapter 461. Your surname Wei. Even if I want to abolish all of your cultivation base, do you not hesitate? The surging sound of Reverend Extreme Happiness suddenly chilled. Vertex novels, handwriting novels. Abolition of the entire cultivation base, this is too embarrassing. But it's no doubt that in the capacity of Reverend Extreme Happiness, when someone asks him to come to someone, he naturally can't just agree. With such a condition, this female cultivator will definitely not agree. Reverend Extreme Happiness is a great treasure problem, but this person seems to be the newly promoted Golden Core First Layer cultivator, who wants to be equal to Reverend Extreme Happiness, and does not put Reverend Extreme Happiness in the eye. It is /P. The words of Reverend Extreme Happiness are exported. The cultivators present are all glimmering in their eyes, and they want to have shapeshift great art. His thing is lust. I know some now. At this moment, hear Reverend Extreme Happiness words, Nangong Yuking face become more white, but after seeing Wei Suo one eye, let absolutely great treasure most cultivator have no idea is, she was nodded, light surging sound Wei, since he can now in this secret place, also presumably have the ability to protect me, even if I did not cultivation base, also may wish to do, /P. The words of Nangong Yuking say that many of the Golden Core cultivators present are shaking, knowing that the cultivation base is more important than anything for most great cultivators. Moreover, the cultivation base of Nangong Yuking has already reached the heavenly circuit realm 4th layer. If the cultivation base is abolished, at least 20 years of painstaking cultivation can be repaired. Wei Suo was also shocked at the moment. Hearing Nangong Yuking said that he is full of thoughts at the moment, no matter what Nangong Yuking does. Very good, I don't think I have a disciple like this under my door. Reverend Extreme Happiness coldly took a look at Nangong Yuking and Wei Suo. Since you say this, I will not abolish your cultivation base, because after all, your great treasure part of the cultivation base is still obtained from the culture before I go under my door, but you said that this person has the ability to protect you, I have to try it? Otherwise, I received most of the female disciples. When I came to ask me to go one, my extreme pleasure palace soon became a loner. I taught the disciple, all of whom helped make a wedding dress. /p. Master, as soon as I heard the words of Reverend Extreme Happiness, Nangong Yuking was suddenly anxious. What are you worried about? Reverend Extreme Happiness smiled directly and interrupted Nangong Yuking's words. He took a deep look at Wei Suo. Since I said that I just tried it, naturally I would not use the great treasure to bully and use all my strength. Moreover, maybe he is willing to give it a try. /p. After a pause, not waiting for Wei Suo to surging sound, Reverend Extreme Happiness looked at Wei Suo indifferently. You are not asking me what conditions, I don't have any conditions. Since you have to ask me for someone, you have to have some money, and Nangong Yuking is also my pro-discipline. If she leaves with you, you can't protect her. It's a waste of money. My contribution to her teaching. As long as you can stop my blow, how can I let you take her? And I can guarantee that I won't use Shapeshift Great Art Great Treasure, launch Shapeshift Great Art, and I won't use the Great Treasure to bully and use all my strength. /p. Fellow Daoist G, please think twice. When I heard Reverend Extreme Happiness, Reverend Black Wolf and Lucaiton, who were next to Wei Suo, changed their face and passed the surging sound into Wei Suo's ear. Golden Core 4th Layer Cultivator, even if you don't use all your strength, the power of a Dao technique Shapeshift Great Art is more than several times that of the Golden Core 1st Layer Cultivator Shapeshift Great Art. Powerful energy even far exceeds Dao rank high grades Shapeshift Great Art Great Treasure. In their view, the general Golden Core 1st Layer Cultivator, of course, is impossible to block with a single blow. Reverend Extreme Happiness means that as long as I can block Reverend's blow, I can take away Nangong Yuking. Is there any other condition? But Wei Suo is calm and does not move the surging sound. That is natural, I have been talking for a long time, and so many fellow Daoists are present, can be witnesses. Reverend Extreme Happiness sat on the pure gold great treasure seat and said motionless. Well, I promise you this condition. Wei Suo nodded without any hesitation. No, Nangong Yuking saw that Wei Suo really promised the challenge and couldn't help but call out the surging sound, which was full of complex looks. It doesn't matter, I think Reverend will also leave lust. Wei Suo looked at Nangong Yuking and said. Fellow Daoist G, you have to grasp it yourself. If you can't, you will admit defeat, don't support it. Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy glanced at each other and sighed. If this is the case, then it would be better to try it in this temple. You are paying attention, but I am shooting. Seeing that Wei Suo didn't say anything, he agreed. Reverend Extreme Happiness flashed a glimpse of his eyes, but he didn't have any nonsense. After saying this, the golden light suddenly brightened. He did not see any movements, and he did not stand up from the great treasure seat. A surging sound, a transparent, ripple-like ripple, was blown directly on Wei Suo's head. Wei Suo only felt a sharp sting in his mind. Divine consciousness shock, /p. In the great treasure hall, almost half of the golden core cultivator changed its face. At this time, Reverend Extreme Happiness was a long-awaited. Wei Suo thought for a long time, but because of the extremely rare, divine consciousness shock type shapeshift great art. Reverend Extreme Happiness is the cultivation base of the Golden Core 4th layer. His divine consciousness is more than the great treasure of the Golden Core 1st layer cultivator. With divine consciousness like him, the cultivator of shapeshift great art and Golden Core 1st layer can be resisted. It must be shocked by the shock, and there is no shapeshift great art to control true UN. The shapeshift great art, the divine consciousness impact, is a true cultivation base, without any cleverness. And just as the shape-shift great art of the divine consciousness hit the Weisuo moment, a group of oval golden brilliance emerged from the hands of Reverend Extreme Happiness. This elliptical golden brilliance looks like an oval golden lychee that doesn't seem to fly fast, but in the blink of an eye, it is already in front of Weisuo's. Not to mention Nangong Yuking and Reverend Black Wolf, etc. At the moment, there is a great treasure of the golden core cultivator in the great treasure hall. Seeing this scene, there is a burst of chill in my heart. The golden energy of this group of golden brilliance is also absolutely impossible to be lower than the pair shift great art great treasure of Dao rank high grade. Even if the golden brilliance's powerful energy is lower, they will be replaced by the Reverend Extreme Happiness divine consciousness. At this moment, it must be like a living dead. It can't stop any defense, and it can't resist it. That is to say, at this moment, many golden core first layer cultivators in this great treasure hall, if they are really against the Reverend Extreme Happiness, are likely to be killed by Reverend Extreme Happiness. The cultivator of the golden core fourth layer, and the cultivator of the golden core first layer, plus the shapeshift great art without the shapeshift great art, is really not a level at all. Oh, how could he be completely unaffected? His divine consciousness is so strong. /P. However, the fact that almost all of the golden core cultivators present in the eyes flashed an incredible look. At this moment, Weisuo turned out to be nothing to hinder. A little black light came out of his hand. Under the finger, a surging sound of the black light pa and the golden light of Reverend Extreme Happiness hit together. Immediately, the black light from Weisuo collapsed and turned into a raging fire. The golden light of Reverend Extreme Happiness has become only 1/10 of the previous great treasure. It seems that the hard shell and flesh of a lychee disappeared, leaving only a small percent of the core inside. In the face of the remaining golden brilliance, Weisuo did not move even with the move, letting this small percent nuclear hit him. When I saw this small percent nuclear hit on him, his body was full of silver and yellow magnificent light flashes, and then this small, nuclear-like golden brilliance, all dissipated. Hung, a surging sound cold surging sound, issued from Reverend Extreme Happiness secret place. Reverend Extreme Happiness, who issued this surging sound, stopped his hand and, like what he said before, no longer inspired any shape-shift great art. Elodeus G. Auth Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy are full of incredible looks. Both people can't believe it. Weisuo is so understated, and it doesn't use any shape-shift great art great treasure, it blocks Reverend Extreme Happiness. One strike. Thank you for Reverend Extreme Happiness and the light of the understated, Weisuo, which only blocked the Reverend Extreme Happiness by shape-shift great art, was indifferent to Reverend Extreme Happiness. I don't think you have such divine ability, but I look down on you Reverend Extreme Happiness's face at the moment, but I can't see any mood, but also faintly said the sentence, then nodded to Nangong Yuking, since, from now on, if you want to leave with him, I won't stop it. Thank you for your respect Nangong Yuking is now a great treasure, a look of blushing face. His Dao technique shapeshift great art is a disciple, which is also an item of intercourse Reverend Extreme Happiness puts his hand, but it's a look that doesn't matter, indicating that intercourse will start again. Since the fellow Daoist has set a precedent, can I also find out a message to solve a personal matter lust seeing that Weisuo wanted to go to Nangong Yuking's side, a surging sound sounded surging sound, but it suddenly rang. And Weisuo looked at the direction of the surging sound, but the brow was unconsciously wrinkled. The cultivator with surging sound is tall and great treasure, wearing a purple robe, and the spiritual chi outside is in the shape of a golden armor unicorn. It is extremely majestic and is the great treasure cultivator heaven catching of the golden core stage third layer. Reverend. Like our cultivation base, there are usually fewer people who can talk to us. It is less fun. What kind of information is inquiring, and the pastime of personal affairs is not bad. I don't think fellow Daoist should have what opinions when he heard heaven catching Reverend Extreme Happiness smiled a little. I don't know what heaven-catching reverend wants to inquire about. I want to ask this name fellow deist heaven-catching reverend is looking at Weisuo without a table. There is a place like shapeshift great art, powerful, and heavenly profound continent. I only heard that there is a cultivator shapeshift great art. If I haven't seen it, should fellow deist be surnamed Wei/P? Today association will have a meeting, so the third is no longer the case. The next chapter is not an accident at 9 p.m., but if you ask for a red ticket, will you be beaten? Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 462. Chapter 462 Gambling. Last name Wei, heaven-catching reverend. With this in mind, many of the Golden Core cultivators' eyes flashed. Reverend Black Wolf and Lucy were also shocked, thinking of something, and some looked at each other with a sigh of relief. What is the relationship between Wei and Reverend in the next surname? But Weisuo, who stopped, is still a wave of ancient wells. What's the relationship? You will know when you wait. Heaven-catching Reverend. The golden armor formed by spiritual chi outside jumped a little, and a pair of violently wounded postures immediately made people feel uncomfortable. On his face, there is no slight feeling of glory. Your reaction at the moment makes me more convinced that you should be surnamed Wei, single name. Weisuo, domineering reverend. In the entire great treasure hall, there were a lot of cold-sounding surging sounds, and even the Reverend Extreme Happiness on the great treasure seat, there was a slight shock on his face. If I said that I am not, Weisuo glanced at heaven-catching Reverend and frowned. Then I naturally believe in my judgment. If you try it, you can naturally tell if fellow deist is the domineering Reverend. Heaven-catching Reverend sneered. How? This kind of intercourse is easy. Will you have to force everyone to confess identity? Weisuo also sneered. A surging sound. It is the first time to participate in this intercourse, but it is also a rule to know that this intercourse will be easy. This intercourse will naturally have no such regulations. What kind of identity you were originally, I will not manage it at all. But one of my friends, but it is possible to die in your hands. Heaven-catching Reverend's face sank. Reversely, even if I am a close relative, I will die in your hands. I will wait until the intercourse is over and I will settle with you, but my good friend is us. Idle Cloud Alliance is the most important thing, and the most important thing is that this friend said that there is something in the intercourse and it is easy to intercourse with me, but if you are the one I want, things must have fallen into your hands. I naturally have to ask a clear one. What do you mean by that? Weisuo took a look at heaven-catching Reverend and his tone became tit for tat. Even if I am that person, even if I have something for your friend, I don't want to intercourse with you. What do you want? You want to be here. Intercourse will be able to deal with me? According to the rules of this intercourse, it is meaningless to explore my origins. Is there any meaning? Is it that you have the final say? Heaven-catching Reverend's eyes suddenly slammed and turned to look at Reverend Extreme Happiness. Reverend Extreme Happiness, this Idle Cloud Alliance, is organized by several of us. Now Xuanhuan is likely to be killed by this person. You shouldn't be biased by this person because of the relationship between this person and your female disciple. Reverend Extreme Happiness took a look at Weisuo and Nangong looking, and gave a slight sigh, nodded. In this case, the intercourse will stop temporarily, and then figure out the matter. Look at the face of you being the first time to participate in this intercourse. I can mention you again. This kind of intercourse will be easy. If any unexpected accidents, the host of the intercourse will be able to intercourse easy will be suspended for the time being. Heaven-catching Reverend watched Weisuo sneer a surging sound and said, what is going to be solved now is what is between you and me. Since you have done this, then I will tell you, I am Weisuo, the one you said, Xuanhuan, is indeed in my hands. Seeing that there is nothing to hide, Weisuo does not hide it, and directly nodded coldly. Weisuo, this person turned out to be a single person, almost destroying the domineering Reverend Weisuo of Eastern Jade Paradise and star convening sect, the entire great treasure hall suddenly disappeared. Very good, Reverend Extreme Happiness, since he admits to killing our idol Cloud Alliance, then I shot him and you shouldn't have any opinion. Heaven Catching Reverend laughed, but he said, but the great treasure half said to Reverend Extreme Happiness. I'm so ignorant, but I don't know what the idol Cloud Alliance is. Reverend Extreme Happiness sighed a little and didn't speak yet, but Wei Suo asked the surging sound color. Tell you anyway, so that you can die. Heaven Catching Reverend sneered, Idol Cloud Alliance is the Golden Core Stage Rogue Cultivator Alliance, led by Reverend Extreme Happiness and me. Because Rogue Cultivator is like a wild crane, compared with some great sects, it is easy to lose money. When we are united, we can have certain guarantees, so that those sects with a large number of Golden Core Cultivators can also don't dare to oppress our Rogue Cultivator at will. Among the cultivators present, there are at least a dozen who joined our Idol Cloud Alliance. Really, Xuanhuan died in my hands, I admit it, but he came to attack my cave, and it was in the lust shape of my cave, and it died in my hands. Wei Suo sneered at a surging sound. As you said, the Idol Cloud Alliance is just a combination of Rogue Cultivator and not being bullied by great sections, so, is it only allowed people in the Idol Cloud Alliance to kill the rest of the Golden Core Cultivator, not the other Golden Core Cultivator? After the meal, Wei Suo sneered again, and why did I find Eastern Jade Paradise, and you should know something about it? But they deal with me first, and I don't deal with them first. Fellow Daoist Wei is a good statement. Just then, a surging sound suddenly rang. Followed by the surging sound. The surging sound was the cultivator Qi Longshan, who had eaten Reverend Black Wolf's flying vinegar for many years. At this moment, I only watched this Qi Longshan faceless lust and looked at Heaven Catching Reverend. According to the rules of our Idol Cloud Alliance, if you take the initiative to deal with others, the cultivator is not protected by the Idol Cloud Alliance. Idol Cloud Alliance itself is not an organization that fights with people. If you want to become a sect-like organization and fight for it in the cultivation world, it will certainly lead to many implications. Then I and Qingping can only withdraw from the Idol Cloud Alliance. Heaven Catching Reverend's eyes flashed, but it was a slight stagnation. Obviously, Qi Longshan's words made him refute without shapeshift great art. In this case, I don't want him to kill my friend at the moment, but before Xuanhuan promised to be at this intercourse, with Heaven Overflowing River Scroll and my intercourse, there are a lot of fellow Daoist witnesses. After taking a deep breath, Heaven Catching Reverend looked at Wei Suo Shen surging sound, this Heaven Overflowing River Scroll, but it is to get out intercourse easy. Yes, it is possible to prove that there is such a thing next to Heaven Catching Reverend, the Blue Yin Cultivator, which was replaced by a monster core for aphrodisiac, immediately nodded and said. If you have pure void vine and Buddha nature holy fruit, two things, you can take Heaven Overflowing River Scroll out of intercourse. Wei Suo blinked and said. Xuanhuan is the answer to Heaven Overflowing River Scroll, in exchange for one of my true Dao pill, plus a heaven level low grade attack, shapeshift great art. Heaven Catching Reverend looked at Wei Suo with a threatening look. Since I have to take out the intercourse, it is natural to follow the two assignments of Xuanhuan and my previous agreement. Xuanhuan and you agreed in advance, but also a mouthful, and a half-mystic rank shapeshift great art great treasure, in exchange for a golden core cultivator, no use of the secret place of medicine pill, and a heaven-level low-grade shapeshift great art. I see Xuanhuan. He has a problem with his head. Wei Suo sneered. These two things are not of interest in the next, but when do you find pure void vine and Buddha nature holy fruit, you can come and intercourse with me, I should do it very well. You are face. Pure void vine and Buddha nature holy fruit are things that only heard, but are rare in 100 years, and are even rarer than amethyst fox rose. Heaven Catching Reverend looked at Wei Suo and said nothing. Since you are so persistent, how can we use the gambling method? Wei Suo looked at the aggressive Heaven Catching Reverend, and the look on his face didn't change. What is a gambling? The two sides set a conditional contract, and the losing party will accept the intercourse. Heaven-catching Reverend looked at Weisuo, and there was a glimpse of the lust in his mouth. I would also like to take a look at domineering Reverend's divine ability. Golden Core 3rd layers cultivation base and my Golden Core 1st layers cultivator fight shapeshift great art. Is this gambling really too fair? Weisuo shrugged his shoulders. Reverend, extreme happiness is more than you. This person is actually in this lust situation. There is still heart lust to ridicule each other. Many Golden Core cultivators can't help but look at each other. The gambling is also a common occurrence in the intercourse. There are also many rules. Naturally, the gambling can be naked and the divine ability is both, and the gambling can be made fair. Heaven-catching Reverend, ridiculed by Weisuo, is not angry. He said coldly, because the gambling parties can open certain conditions, the Golden Core 1st layer cultivator wins in the past. Golden Core 2nd layer and 3rd layer cultivator are also commonplace. Since you say this, you definitely have something to think about shapeshift great art, then I will listen. Weisuo smiled and said. Don't say that I use cultivation base to press you. We have 3 cultivators from Idle Cloud Alliance. I count as one. In addition, I invite 2 cultivators with the same Golden Core 1st layer to compete in 3 games. The competition conditions of 2 of them are determined by you. The conditions of 1 of them are determined by our side. In 2 of these, you can specify which cultivator we are on and what kind of conditions you use. Heaven-catching Reverend took a look at Weisuo and said, whether you lost 2 games, you naturally lose. What is the specific condition? Weisuo asked. The gambling is also a lot of customary rules, for example, faster than who flies, first reach a secret place. For example, the 2 sides only use the shapeshift great art to see who wins. There is also a delineation area, and if anyone is forced out of the area, it will be lost. Heaven-catching Reverend said one by one. Almost all cultivators present, but they all listened with great interest, because this kind of gambling is only popular in several cities in heavenly profound continent, and some of them have special gambling great treasure, because this kind of gambling is very interesting. The unpredictability of the outcome is strong, so there are many cultivators to watch, but in the southern part of heavenly profound continent, there are very few such gambling, so the Golden Core cultivator and the great treasure are not seen. After such a gambling, plus the gambling of both sides of the Golden Core cultivator, then this kind of gambling is definitely more interesting. Dedication. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 463. Chapter 463 Divine Mystic Breath. Since the name of the surname cultivator and Weisuo are faster than idling, there must be something amazing about the shapeshift great art or the flying shift great art great treasure, so from the beginning, Weisuo didn't want to people are flying faster than anyone else, and they want to intercept this person directly. Vertex novels, handwriting novels. At this moment, the attack like Weisuo, even the cultivator of the Golden Core 2nd layer, must be blocked. Fellow Daoist Wei's divine ability is amazing, but my golden illusion is unstoppable. But at this moment, suddenly, behind the surname cultivator, there were 12 longsword-like silver-white brilliances. Just under a flash, the surname cultivator immediately split into 12 and became 12 silver-white. Escape light, you can't see which one is his real naked body. Weisuo's gold crystal beam, antiquity ominous fire and his instantly released shapeshift great art squirting multicolored mucus rushed onto one of the silver escape lights. However, this silver escape light was distorted, but it burst into disarray and became a silver-white mist with a strong gold and iron atmosphere, which then dissipated. Almost at the same time, among the 11 silver-white escape lights that had already spurted dozens of feet, suddenly one turned red. Chi! Immediately, the road turned into a red escape light, which immediately blasted forward at a speed several times faster than the original. This kind of idling, although not comparable to the gold-shaped flapshift shapeshift great art great treasure of Reverend Extreme Happiness, is also extremely impressive, significantly faster than Wei Suo's Chi fire boat. At a glance, the speed of this red escape light, Wei Suo shook his head slightly, but gave up without moving. I saw the red escape light. It seems that just a few breaths have reached the top of the secret place that the previous Reverend Extreme Happiness indicated. After a week of maneuvers, he slowly stopped and gave a red-brown brilliance, but a fusiform shapeshift great art great treasure with only 3 or 4 feet long and only one person standing on it. The elliptical body of the entire shapeshift great art great treasure is fully embellished with an oval red crystal stone that looks gorgeous. Subsequently, the surnamed cultivator flew back and forth in this flying bowl, shapeshift great art great treasure. He fellow deists red light is really well deserved. Indifferently glanced at the surnamed cultivator that flew back, Reverend Extreme Happiness turned to look at the still moving Wei Suo. How does fellow deist Wei say shapeshift great art? His fellow deist skill is so subtle. Of course, this is where fellow deist wins. And what else says shapeshift great art Wei Suo does not move the surging sound color. It's understated. It seems that it doesn't put the array on the mind, and the golden core cultivator is even more incomprehensible. Since the first gambling has now broken the game, then in the second game, fellow deist Wei wants to gamble with me first, or want to gamble with do fellow deist. Heaven catching Reverend smiled a little, and there was a glimpse of the god's lust in the eyes. The next step is to start with fast deist Wei Suo was a sigh of disgrace and nodded indifferently. This is fellow deist Wei's choice of test conditions. Heaven catching Reverend smiled slightly. I don't know if fellow deist Wei wants to choose which of the remaining conditions. It's a half martimeter, and now it's better. Wei Suo looked at Heaven catching Reverend and said, I will compare my insights and eyesight with Du fellow deist. Compared with Du Yi's experience and eyesight. Among all the cultivators, the most great treasure of Du Yi, the things I saw must not be less, he turned out to be Du Yi than the knowledge and eyesight. He shouldn't just want to deliberately lose the gamble, sell Heaven catching Reverend a face, and give Heaven overflowing river scroll equivalent to Heaven catching Reverend so that Heaven catching Reverend doesn't deal with him. Wei Suo's words were exported, and the idea was almost in the mind of a great treasure semi-cultivator. Do you want to see more than me? When I heard the words of Wei Suo, Du Yi, who seemed to be old, couldn't get angry. To say that shapeshift great art, he is not necessarily Wei Suo's opponent, but the age of Wei Suo is actually to compare with him. He thinks that Wei Suo is simply looking down on people. Yes, although I know that Du fellow deist is well informed, I want to give it a try. Wei Suo didn't care about the old man's lust, and smiled lightly. Nice. If this is the case, then please take fellow deist Wei to take things out. Du Fu said with enthusiasm. This piece of things, don't know if Du fellow deist is denied. Wei Suo did not say much, just took out his top-grade spirit-protecting ancient talisman, wrapped in true Yuan, suspended in front of Du Yi. The face of Du Yi changed slightly. The rest of the golden core cultivator present is also a face-to-face. Not to mention Du Yi, the rest of the golden core cultivator, there is no way to see what Wei Suo's top-grade spirit-protecting ancient talisman is. This ancient great treasure of fellow deist has never been seen before. After a closer look, Du Yi shook his head and reached out with a little bachelor. Let's see fellow deist Wei and see if I don't recognize my ancient great treasure. What is this again? I saw the dozen leaves, but it was a transparent egg with a small treasure. The elliptical bead shell is completely transparent, like a crystal, but inside is a liquid naked body filled with azure, but in the liquid naked body, it faintly flashes some wonderful light characters. This thing, the presence of the cultivator including Reverend Extreme Happiness, is also not known at all. If I am not mistaken, this thing should be the heavy water Xuanzu of the ancient Emperor Xianzong. It is a one-time consumable water attribute shapeshift great art, but it destroys all true fire. It is the fire attribute, shapeshift great art and shapeshift great art great treasure's nemesis, and even if it deals with other shapeshift great art and shapeshift great art great treasure, its powerful energy can reach close to mystic rank. Just looking at this thing, Wei Suo smiled and said, and added, "Do fellow deist actually has such a different great treasure in his hands, I am really congratulated. There is almost no record in the current classics of the Xiangong Palace. You actually recognize the origin of this thing." Originally, Wei Suo, who felt that Wei Suo could not recognize the thing he had come up with, suddenly called the surging sound incredibly great treasure. This thing is not uncommon at that time, Wei Suo. The 3 strange green crystals that I got together with golden spotted ginseng, I don't even know, he certainly doesn't know, but these things are too expensive for great treasure, and if someone knows the effect, it is not good. You will then show him the double-headed monster beast that he got in Little Heavenly Realm. With his knowledge, he certainly doesn't know. At this time, what he didn't know was that green-robed old man was in Wei Suo's ear, and it was very disdainful to send such a surging sound. "Do fellow deist, you are optimistic, this is my second thing." Wei Suo's face is without any lust fluctuations. After another shot on the treasure-receiving pocket, it is the strange double head that is in the Little Heavenly Realm and the monster beast. The body of the monster beast was taken out. Please ask Do fellow deist to check out. What is my monster beast? This kind of double-headed monster beast doesn't know if it is a cultivator. After the shapeshift great art, it merges with the body. Anyway, even the golden core stage cultivator, such as green-robed old man and Yin Liwa, Xuanhuan old ancestor, don't even know it. Right now. When Du Yi saw it, naturally he couldn't recognize what it was. It's just that he or the other cultivators present, you can see that this double-headed monster beast should be a very high-level monster beast. Seeing this scene, heaven-catching Reverend was obviously frowning, his eyes flashing, but then the look was restored. The other party is 2 things in a row that they don't even know at all, but they take it out, thinking that the other party's things they don't know, but they are being looked at by the other side. Du Fui's forehead suddenly unconsciously emerged a grain of sweat, and after seeing it for a while, he made up his mind and reached out and grabbed a thing from the treasure-receiving pocket. A very strong sandalwood fragrance suddenly spread. I saw the dozo leaves taken out at the moment, but it was a black hibiscus. This piece of hibiscus seems to be the root of a certain plant, naturally grown, but it is a strange pattern of gold coins. And on this peculiar black hibiscus, there are bursts of black sandal and oily black brilliance. Do you know what this is? The golden core cultivator at the scene saw such a strange thing, and suddenly the interest of great treasure increased, but the intercourse between the secret talks, but one does not know what this is. Congratulations to Do fellow deist, I don't think there is a great treasure in the hands of Do fellow deist at the moment. Wei Suo immediately said this. Tiantan beads, Du Kuiye suddenly stayed for a while. You said this thing, is it called Tiantanzu? Looking at the dead lust of Du Fuye at the moment, but even himself, he did not know what it was. This kind of appearance is naturally not wrong. Wei Suo nodded. Fellow deist Wei, then you know what kind of thing is this day, what is the effect? After Du Yi hesitated, he couldn't help but ask. This day Tantanzu is also called Xuanhuan. After refining, the body will emit almost the same atmosphere as the divine mystic realm cultivator. Although it cannot enhance the cultivation base, it really becomes the divine mystic realm cultivator, but it has such a breath. Walking outside Heaven's Dome is useful when exploring great treasure. Wei Suo looked at Du Yi and said. After refining, will the body emit the same breath as the divine mystic realm cultivator? Throughout the square, a burst of amazing surging sound was heard. To know the general genius of the great treasure, there will be a high-level monster beast guard, and basically the more amazing genius next to the great treasure, the guardian of the high-level monster beast is even more powerful. Some high-level monster beast, is the golden core cultivator seeing to be desperate to escape. But with the breath of the divine mystic realm cultivator, you might be able to scare the monster beast directly, so it's natural to say that there is no need to say more about the secret place. This thing turned out to be such a thing. Do withered leaves for a while also stay, a moment later, saw him again, hesitated for a moment, and finally under the determination of general, toward Wei Suo arch, Wei, fellow Daoist Wei, this thing I also tried drug, also try to cut a little refining, but did not feel what use secret place, this thing is to use special side shapeshift great art refining, only then you say that kind of effect. That is not. Wei Suo shook his head and looked at Du Yi. He said, you can cut this thing directly and cut it in half, you know what is going on, but you must be careful not to break the inside. Cut open too, do dead leaves are a bit of a stay, but looking at this thing in the hand, but a bite, only listen to Kacha's surging sound, this rhombic-like rhizome, turned into two pieces in his hands. Is there a bead here? And all the cultivators, including Du Yi, were surprised to see that the two segmented roots of the roots had a small white bead with a yellow bean. This bead looks like a crystal stone, but it is very moist, and it has a thick sandalwood fragrance that instantly floats throughout the square. Tiantan beads, refers to the inside of the beads. After Du Fui stayed for a while, finally his eyes flashed and he reacted thoroughly. He asked Wei Suo, is it possible to directly refining this bead? Yes, the essence of this kind of thing is all in this bead, just refining this bead. Wei Suo nodded indifferently. Thank you fellow Daoist Wei for pointing, fellow Daoist Wei's insights are far above me, and I am going down the drain. Upon hearing the words of Wei Suo's, Du Yi's face immediately showed a convincing look. After arching his hand against Wei Suo, he did not even see Wei Suo's third thing, directly with a few gratitude. In general, admit defeat. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 464. Chapter 464. Heads up golden core third layer? Nothing, just under the circumstance, I just saw a few more classics that I didn't quite see. Wei Suo looked at the faint smile of Du Kui, who was very admired. I thought it was fellow Daoist Wei who despised me, but it seems to be totally different now. After Du Yi arched his hand against Wei Suo, he was a little embarrassed and hesitant. Fellow Daoist Wei, I would like to ask you about it. What is the medicinal properties of this day? It is a one-time refining, or can you swallow it and slowly refining it? And if the beads are refining, the smell of divine mystic cultivator, which is emitted from the body, is always exuding, can it converge? The medicinal properties of Tanzu beads are not fierce this day, and it does not take much time to refining. With fellow Daoists' cultivation base, it is estimated that less than half the column time, you can completely refining. Wei Suo looked at Du Kui Yerode. As for the smell of divine mystic cultivator, it is naturally formed in the spiritual chi that our cultivator has produced. As long as there is concealing aura technique, you can send and receive freely. It turns out that, thank you fellow Daoist Wei, Du Yi's eyeballs turned, and immediately a delightful look, directly on the head, swallowed Tiantan beads into the mouth. Seeing his move, almost all cultivators present were not surprised by the table lust. This can be refining right away, and walking outside heaven's dome and exploring the great treasure. Great treasure has a great place for the great treasure, of course, the direct refining is best, saves people from being robbed. When Du Suyi asked Wei Suo how to refining this time, the cultivator present has already seen his intentions. Fellow Daoist Wei's statement is really good. In the next time, it is a lust ode to fellow Daoist Wei. Only after swallowing the Tiantan beads into the abdomen, it seems that it only feels a little. Du Yi immediately said this to Wei Suo with conviction, and his body immediately gave off a strange scent. Spiritual chi outside the leaves of Du Kui was originally a condensai, but with the strange fragrance of the fragrance, the eyes outside him began to have a little milky white spiritual chi, and this spiritual chi seems to be more intense and will produce more changes. For a time all the attention of the cultivators present, all gathered on the body of Du Yi. Fellow Daoist Wei, your opinion is really extraordinary. You have won this game. Now it is a test between us. But the refining of this Tiantan beat is not seen in the fellow Daoist. Why don't we wait until Du fellow Daoist refining is done to see what the atmosphere like divine mystic realm cultivator is, and what is the final match? There is no heaven catching reverend on the surface, and Wei Suo, who looks at the smile, said this. Of course, I just know this thing, and I have never seen the legendary divine mystic realm great treasure cultivator. It feels good to feel the divine mystic realm great treasure cultivator, Wei Suo said in a light way. For the sake of winning, it is not anxious. Hearing Wei Suo, heaven-catching reverend secretly sneered at a surging sound, and said nothing, just turned to look at the changes in Du Yi. This beat is amazing. This is the record of the body, the variation scenery that will appear when divine mystic is close to success. I can't think of it at Du fellow Daoist. It was only a moment, and a golden core cultivator wearing a scaly shapeshift great art suit couldn't help but marvel at the surging sound. Now the entire heavenly profound continent known divine mystic realm great treasure cultivator, only the mystic wind, sect, and so few people, and because divine mystic realm cultivator divine ability is not even golden core cultivator great art imagination, these shapeshift divine realm cultivator high above, the status extremely highly absolute, so golden core realm and divine mystic realm said although only a great treasure order, but each of the first layer cultivation base is difficult. So golden core realm cultivator want and divine mystic the realm cultivator have intercourse said, want to see a divine misty sea realm cultivator is more difficult than a divine sea realm cultivator wants to see golden core realm cultivator. So when it comes to divine mystic realm's great treasure cultivator, there are so many golden core cultivator that only a handful of people have seen, and heavenly profound continent in the end there are several divine mystic realm cultivator, but also do not know, but to be sure, this thousands of years, even in some talented cultivator constantly emerging, is the cultivation world golden age period, the entire heavenly profound continent divine mystic realm add up, no more than 10. Now the entire divine mystic realm cultivator of heavenly profound continent is definitely less than 10. However, although most of the great treasures have never seen divine mystic realm cultivator, it is even more impossible to see the lust scene when the golden core 5th layer cultivator hit divine mystic realm, but many golden core cultivators are present, but they have also seen the classics above about golden. The core cultivator shocked the record of divine mystic realm. According to these records, the golden core realm 5th layer is at its peak, and the impact of divine mystic is to make the golden core break out. The golden core will break open and cause a change, and the divine mystic shapeshift great art will be born. In other words, the impact of divine mystic is like hatching a monster core is gone, but a monster beast will be drilled. According to the different shapeshift great art and golden core, the divine mystic shapeshift great art will be different after the golden core is broken. Some of the cultivators of the water attribute function shapeshift great art, after the golden core is broken, the condensed divine mystic shapeshift great art may be a water attribute heavenly dragon, and some may be a water attribute black tortoise. Some of the cultivators that specialize in the fire attribute function shapeshift great art, after the golden core breaks open, the condensed divine mystic shapeshift great art, but it may be a fire unicorn, or a fire Deo venerable. These divine mystic shapeshift great art are made up of golden core and true UN. The essence of the cultivator is the advanced of the golden core. It changes a form. It is a solid naked body rather than an illusion. It can be driven like a golden core. And it will produce more amazing divine ability. Like spirit corp old Seuss's blood spirit old ancestor, has been repaired to the late stage of the golden core 5th layer, spirit light and core chi outside, the magical phantom that has always been hidden, which will be formed after the golden core is broken. Divine mystic shapeshift great art looks like this. It's just that blood spirit old ancestor has been slow to attack divine mystic realm due to many limitations such as shapeshift great art and physical body, but no shapeshift great art has really turned golden core into such a divine mystic shapeshift great art. According to the records of the classics, golden core 5th layer peak cultivator, in the impact divine mystic realm, golden core broken, golden core great treasury quantity origin chi and essence, also will feed back nourish the flesh, make flesh again suffer a great treasure amplitude of amazing moisture, at that time cultivator in the flesh of the filth, meat naked body, skin, also will become between jade and vegetation like the sun, exudes the fragrance, like cultivator itself, becomes the most rare spiritual herb in the world. Now there is no substantial change in the true Yuan cultivation base and the flesh of Du Yi, but his skin has turned into a very lustrous bronze color, and it has sent out a strange smell. It's just like this, and the golden core cultivator's physical appearance when it hits divine mystic realm is almost the same in appearance. With the continued refining of Du Yi, I saw the eyeball outside the body where spiritual chi condensed. The milky white naked body is also wrapped around the eyeball, and the entire eyeball looks like spiritual chi. Exudes a strong aroma. It was only a moment of time, and the entire square of hundreds of feet was filled with such a breath of sandalwood and lotus fragrance. This breath gives a very clean, holy feeling. Yomo had a total of half stick of incense time, only to see the smell of Du Fuye body. It is obvious that the drug is completely exhausted, and Du Yuye is immediately aoka deep breath, his face smile again. This is just a simulation of the smell of the divine mystic realm cultivator. The moisture of the body is not great treasure, and there is no pressure from the divine mystic realm cultivator. Reverend extreme happiness is also a close eyes feeling at the moment. Then, after saying this sentence, but also sighed a surging sound, but the higher level of monster beast, the more sensitive to the feeling of breath, such a the breath should be enough to shock the majority treasure of the great treasure, so that these monster beasts are avoided. Congratulations to Du fellow deist. I am thankful to fellow deist Wei for this matter, otherwise I have such a great treasure in my hand, and I don't even know the secret place. The happy Du Fuye was grateful and nodded at Wei Suo. Now since Du fellow deist has refining the Tian Tanzu, we should also try the next one. Du Yi thanked Wei Suo once again and seemed to want to say something to Wei Suo again, but at this time heaven catching reverend's eyes flashed a bit of an unpleasant look, and Wei Suo said without a look. I don't know fellow deist Wei. Which one to choose and compare with me? Okay, then finish this last gamble first. Wei Suo smiled a little, seemingly well informed, and thought about it in general. He said, let's choose the fourth kind that Reverend said, and delineate the area. No matter what means, if you force the other party out of the designated area, you will win. How about Reverend? The great treasure of the scene. Most of the cultivators' thinking has not been completely recovered from the Tiantan bead. At this moment, as soon as Wei Suo is heard, these cultivators have changed a bit too much and are a bit sensational. Demarcating the area and forcing the other party out of the designated area, this kind of comparison is limited, but in fact, it is almost quite two people in the ring to single out shapeshift great art. This kind of comparison test can be said to be the first of 6 trials, the closest to the two people single-handedly shapeshift great art. You actually want to choose this, on the face of heaven catching Reverend. This moment is also a shocking look, with a cold flash in the eyes. Why, is there any problem with Reverend? Wei Suo looked at heaven catching Reverend indifferently. I naturally have no problem. Heaven catching Reverend's face returned to the face without a lust, but his eyes were completely gloomy. Looking at Wei Suo, it happened to Reverend extreme happiness, since fellow deist Wei chose this way and me after the gambling, I will bother Reverend extreme happiness to give us a place. Then this square Reverend extreme happiness was also very surprised to see Wei Suo. After watching it for a while, he pointed to the square where everyone is. This place is almost enough. It is limited to 200 feet in height. Who is forced out of this? The square, or the height of more than 200 feet, even if you lose, how do you look? Dedication. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziwei. Chapter 465. This is. The light of this escape is golden yellow, extremely blazing, and a large mass, which rushed to the point where the upper half of the waterfall was completely cut off, flying out, and the sound was amazing. Suddenly there was such a change, not to mention Feng Xiao and Zhang Zhouyu were all in awe, even Shi Fiqing, who had been in a cold posture all the time, was startled. This amazing escape is actually a golden pavilion with 7 floors. The golden light is dazzling on the outside, which makes people unable to look at it, while the pearly treasure inside is brightly lit and there is a melodious drumming music inside. The sound is exactly like a real pavilion flying in the air. But this pavilion exudes an amazing coercion, and the speed is extremely alarming, but in an instant, a few people have not had time to take a closer look. This majestic golden pavilion-shaped flying escape tool, just has disappeared into the eyes of everyone. Wei Suo's complexion changed suddenly. It was only after his knowledge was swept away that he couldn't get in. It is clear that this extremely amazing flying talisman has a prohibition against the exploration of other monks' knowledge. And the speed of this magnificent pavilion-shaped flying escape magic weapon turned out to be nearly twice as fast as his fireflies. To know that Weizhou's Li Wofang is in the dozens of cities near Haixian City in Yunling mainland, they are all the best escape magic weapons. At least Weizhou is in Yunling mainland and Tianxian continent. I have never seen a magic weapon that escapes faster than fire. But at this moment, the escape speed of this flying escape magic weapon was nearly twice as fast as that from the fire boat. This escape speed is simply appalling. What changed his face even more was that the light on the fish-shaped communication jade from his waist disappeared immediately after the golden pavilion-shaped flying escape magic weapon disappeared in his sight. If it was Nangang Yuking who inspired the fish-shaped communication jade, then at this moment either she had stopped the communication of the jade rune, or it was in this golden pavilion-shaped flying escape magic weapon. With this golden pavilion-shaped flying escape the magic weapon is gone. He glanced at the direction where the amazing golden yellow escape disappeared, and there was no slight stop, and Wei Suo, whose face was erratic, immediately followed the true element into the jade symbol that had been pinched in his hand. However, Wei Suo always paid attention to the true Yuan once, and after stopping his hand, his piece of communication yufu, but no change. How about, this red sperm should be no problem at this time. The black-shirt monk, who was a little shocked by this amazing golden yellow escape light, saw that Feng Xiao and others were not going to be psychic. The corner was thrown to him, but it was a bit impatient. This day Feng Xiao nodded, trying to throw the horn of the psychic mother to the black-shirt monk, but Wei Suo took the horn of the psychic mother in his hand. He bowed his hand to the black-shirt monk, who didn't seem to speak well, and asked calmly, "I don't know if this deist knows or not, which senior did he leave with this group of escapes? Deist, is your master Black Wolf a real person? Are you here to trade, or are you here to inquire about the news?" The black-shirt monk sneered and looked deeply at Weizhou and Weizhou's psychedelic female protagonist. 2. Obviously, the posture of this monk at the moment is that you should get to know each other, take the horn of the psychic mother and you can leave. Fang Cai, this person may have a great relationship with the next. I wonder if I can help the next one, tell the origin of this person, but Wei Suo still said indifferently, looking at the black-shirt monk. "Are you going to threaten me?" Hearing Wei Suo said, the black-shirt monk suddenly looked at Wei Suo with a cold face. "If I don't tell you the origin of this person, you don't tell me did you give me the horn of the psychic mother?" Hearing the black-shirt monk saying this, Feng Xiao's face suddenly looked awkward, and she opened her mouth to say something, but Zhang Zhuayu immediately tugged on his vest. At the moment, Zhang Zhuayu has already seen that the passage of light must be of great importance to Wei Suo. "I just want Daiyu to help, by the way, and mention the origin of this person." "For Daiyu, should it be just a matter of handwork," Wei Suo said blankly, "and if you can really help come to me, I will definitely thank you." As for the Taoist, you don't want to do me a favor, then you will bother the Taoist to inform your master, and ask you to see your master. The Taoist does not have to buckle. I want to hold your hat on my waiting head. It sounds sharp to you, but I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. The black shirt monk sneered contemptuously. To tell you the truth, if you know each other, please give me the horn of the psychic mother, otherwise, even if you kill you and say it, you are greedy for my red sperm and don't trade with us. And you still want to see my master. What do you think you are? Do you think you are a gold monk? What? What if I am the monk Jindan? Wei Suo looked at the black shirt monk expressionlessly and said slowly. The monk shirt was about to say something, but suddenly his face changed drastically, because at this moment, a great pressure came from Wei Suo's body, and at the same time, he felt almost breathless at the same time. You, senior, you concealed cultivation behavior? There was only a lot of rudeness at the bottom. Please senior, the black shirt monk stayed for a few moments before his face turned a little ugly, and even the title changed immediately. 2. Is this man who just left you a real black wolf master? Wei Suo asked the black shirt monk. Nonsense. This predecessor is not my master, but just happened to pass by and come to visit my master. The black shirt monk did not put it down anymore. We know that Wei Suo just agitated the true Yuan and the consciousness of consciousness. He felt that he was more powerful than his master Black Wolf, and he knew nothing about the origin of Wei Suo at the moment, and the Jindan monk acted without care. If he annoyed Wei Suo, he would not deal with it. He directly rolled the horns of the red sperm and the psychic mother, and he couldn't explain it like a black wolf, and he must be severely punished. So after saying this at the moment, the black shirt monk added a little secretly and tremble, it's just the specific origin of this senior, I don't know. Can you please tell me about your master and say that I have something to ask him to see? Seeing that the black shirt monk cooperated very well, Wei Suo's tone was slightly softened. It was only a moment before he understood that at the speed of the escape, he would certainly not be able to catch up. Now, only from the real body of the black wolf, can he find out the news of the owner of the escape. Taking the cultivation of Nangong Yuking as a matter of course, it is impossible for nature to be the owner of that escaped light. Please wait for the seniors to wait, and the juniors will inform my master here. The black shirt monk did not dare to say this in a slight manner, and then immediately turned and plunged into the waterfall behind. I said, brother, what the is going on? As soon as the black shirt monk plunged into the waterfall, Zhang Zhuai couldn't help but looked at Wei Suo and asked. I used to have a good friend in Lingyu City, and I have had a lifelong friendship. I have been in contact with this piece of communication Yufu before. But since a few years ago, I have completely lost the news. But only then, this piece of communication Yufu is bright again. Wei Suo did not hide anything, and handed the fish-shaped communication Yufu to Zhang Zhuai. If there is nothing unexpected, my friend must be just in front. Among the flying magic weapon. Which friend is not a confidant? There is nothing to pretend to be in front of us, Zhang Zhuai heard Wei Suo said, but he immediately smiled very ambiguously. How do you know? Wei Suo suddenly dumbfounded. Why are men so worried? Like our men, even if they have a hard relationship, they always feel that the other party has their own world. Maybe they are well mixed outside, and they will definitely not take this thing out from time to time. Zhang Zhuai smiled again, but I said that your confidant must be very affectionate to you. Otherwise, how could it be okay? Also inspire the communication of Yufu to try it. Every time it is stimulated, it means to think of it. You said she could never know that you were here. Suo suddenly felt some heartbeat and was speechless. This escape light is no small thing, and it can fly out in such a rampage. It seems that it has no need to care about the appearance of the real black wolf. This person's identity should not be under the real black wolf. Feng Zhao looked some dignified said. I don't know who you are, do you come to visit? Just then a hearty laugh came from the waterfall. And the whole waterfall suddenly resembled a curtain, rolled up on both sides, showing that the surroundings of this waterfall are indeed arranged with a water system. With this hearty laugh, a middle-aged monk, who also wore a black vest and was of medium build, looked more than 40 years old and had a bluish-yellow face, showing a figure, facing Wei Suo and others. He arched his hands and said hello. The black aura outside the black shirt monk kept rolling, and suddenly formed the shape of a black wolf. It seemed that there were many small black wild wolves clustering around, which is obviously a real black wolf. In the next season, Li will also practice the loose repair outside the Sky Dome. This time I originally wanted to deal with Taoist friends, but I just encountered some things and wanted to ask Taoist friends to help. Wei Suo also arched his hand. And then reached out a little, and put the horn of the psychic mother in front of the real black wolf. Thank you Daiyu for bringing such a good thing. This black wolf's real face is very kind. After naturally receiving the horn of the psychic mother, he smiled and said, I heard the little disciple say, Ji Daiyu, you want to inquire about Fang Cai's message of escape. Please forgive me to ask, what is the point of asking about this message of escape, Ji?